Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Jeanette McNeely. We warmly welcome Mr. Alex McGowan, President of the Naval Association of Australia, ACT Section. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sapper Arthur Walter Bird. Arthur Bird was born on the 9th of January 1917 in Lithgow, New South Wales, to Walter and Pearl Myra Bird. He had an older sister, Ivy. His father had served with the militia and the 4th Battalion, enlisting in July 1918 and travelling overseas, but had arrived after the armistice. Nevertheless, he remained in Europe until August 1919. Arthur Bird worked as a pastry cook and in 1936 married Beryl Marjorie Miller. He was living in Orange when he enlisted with the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 11th of July 1940. He spent some months in the motor workshops and in January 1941 was posted to the 8th Division Royal Australian Engineers. He embarked for Singapore on the 17th of September 1941, arriving in October. Following Japan's entry into the war in December 1941, the units of the 8th Division were involved in fierce fighting against the Japanese forces on the Malayan Peninsula. On the 14th of February 1942, Commonwealth forces in Malaya were forced to surrender, and Sapper Bird was one of 45,000 British and Australian troops who became prisoners of war. He was initially held at Changi Prisoner of War Camp, but the Japanese soon called for working parties to build and expand new infrastructure across their empire. In July, Bird volunteered with Bravo Force, which left for Borneo in July 1942. The men had been assured of better food and conditions, but the almost 1,500 members of Bravo Force found themselves on a hellish sea journey, crammed into the cargo holds of the Yubi Maru for 11 days before arriving at Sandakan. Conditions at Sandakan soon devolved into some of the worst experienced by prisoners of the Japanese. Prisoners, including the sick, were forced at gunpoint to work on the construction of the military airstrip and were often beaten by their captors. Illness and death ravaged the camp and food was scarce. The completed airfield was soon beset by Allied aircraft bombing, and between January and March 1945, those prisoners who could be made to walk were forced into a series of marches west to Ranau, a distance of 260 kilometres. Bird was among the 455 fittest prisoners forced into undertaking the first march. The journey was horrendous. The guards refused to let the prisoners rest, and those too sick or weak to continue were left behind to die or executed. Just 309 men made it to Ranau. By the time of the second wave of marching prisoners reached Ranau, this number was down to 6. One of those 6 was Sapper Arthur Bird. On the 6th of July, suffering beriberi and malaria, Bird could not stand to attend work detail. 2 of his fellow prisoners tried to help him up, but he was knocked to the ground by a guard, who beat him for more than 10 minutes. When the party returned hours later, Bird was still lying on the ground and could not bear to be moved back to the hut. He lapsed into a coma and died on the 8th or 9th of July. Sapper Arthur Walter Bird is commemorated at the Labuan Memorial in Malaysia, and his name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst more than 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sapper Arthur Walter Bird, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a pleasant evening.